Today, a look at Windows 10 boot times using a Samsung 950. That Samsung 950 is a M.2 design, so that this system boots as fast as possible in Windows 10. I have some BIOS settings to show you. So we ensure a fast boot, but we also ensure we can see it with the Supermicro BIOS. And by default, the Supermicro BIOS has some issues with showing Windows. So I'm going to give you some tips on the BIOS configuration that you can actually test Windows 10 boot times on this Supermicro Super Server SYS 5028D-TN4T mini tower computer. This is a octa-core Xeon D1540 design. On the right you can see watt burn, as well as a stopwatch showing you that we're now 50 seconds into the boot. Yeah, it takes a little while to boot a server-style machine. So I'm going to hit delete to get into the BIOS setup. And that's a bit of a surprise. My monitor gave me a little problem there. All right. It's an old monitor. So the BIOS level is shown here, 1.0b. So if you're going to try to repeat these results, well, you're probably going to be on that same BIOS level. That's what's current here in November of 2015. But the setting I want to show you is by advanced. So right arrow and boot features highlighted, hit enter. And then quiet boot is highlighted, hit enter again. Quiet boot we want to disable. And that's it. Now I'm on a factory default BIOS at the moment. And I've installed Windows 10 in UEFI mode. So I'm going to hit F4, save and exit. All right, so now we can watch the whole boot process again. Okay, so now you can have a look at how long it takes overall for the machine to boot. Now this first boot didn't actually go through BIOS again, and you saw the swirly pinwheel there overlaying the Supermicro screen. So you couldn't really see how long the boot took. So that's the problem. This next boot, now that we've set the BIOS up appropriately, is going to go better. Now, how did I install Windows? And then we'll reboot. I installed Windows off of USB 3 using Fall Update. So Media Builder from Microsoft, you download it and it builds this USB bootable USB 3 device for you. This Fall Update 1511, build 10586 came out a couple days ago. That's what we got here. I installed the Intel chipset driver so that Device Manager would look pretty clean there. There you go. Ethernet 10 gig is not installed, but everything else is good to go. You don't get yellow bangs through everything. All right. What else? Samsung NVMe driver. I probably could have showed you that in Device Manager. That's important for the full speed of the Samsung 950. And finally, no network. That's the red X through the network. So there's no Windows Update or anything else taking effect, or the network can't possibly be doing anything at boot time. Finally, the last thing we'll want to do is check on power. Now, if we look over on the right here, we'll see I'm burning about 30 watts right now. Task Manager shows us at a nice mild 0.78 gigahertz. So if I type power here, power and sleep settings, additional power settings, crank it to high performance. So by default, Windows installs and balances. You're going to want to leave it there. It's going to waste electricity, leave it at high performance all the time. Just in case it makes a slight difference on boot time, I'm going to crank it to high just for this test. Now what that does is leaves the gigahertz unnecessarily high all the time. And you can see the watt burn, it might be slightly higher over there on the kilowatt on the right as well. Pretty small difference. Now it's bouncing up from 30 to 35. So I'm not sure how granular the kilowatt in there. It's jumping all the way to 40. So yeah, it stays at 30 when idle. Now this is a stock system with only an M.2 chip on the motherboard, shipped from Wired Zone as, say, Bundle 2. It's the basic system. This particular one has 128 gig of RAM. So even with 4 32 gig memory sticks, it's a very efficient machine. Now, time to reboot and get a sense of how long it really takes, now that I've explained exactly how I set this up and exactly how you should be able to repeat the same exact test in your environment to see what kind of boot times you're getting. Now this time I'm going to go all the way from power off to see from beginning to end the entire process. Okay, pay close attention. Here we go. This is a new looking BIOS screen. No more Supermicro logo. Okay, 1:06 is when boot started, 1:13 is when it ended. So we got about 7 seconds there. NetPLWiz is the last thing I didn't mention. So netplwiz.exe, you use Windows key plus R to run that. It makes it so it auto logs in. So that's it. That's my test of boot time on this Supermicro super server, and it seems to be the same every time I do it, about 7 seconds. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Thank you for watching and for visiting tinkertry.com.